truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office. Experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all. In-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths. We hold these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
All right, welcome back, folks. Best podcast ever. If you haven't given it 5 stars, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Today we have a really interesting conversation ahead of us. We have Representative Jeff Van Drew. Jeff, thanks for being on.
It's my pleasure. I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, it's the best podcast,
I agree. I'm not going to argue with you.
Appreciate you being on. And I've been wanting to do this for a while, ever since you switched parties from Democrat to Republican. That's sort of a claim to fame. But before we get into that, can we go into your bio just a little bit? You were a dentist for 30 years?
Yes.
From New Jersey?
New Jersey. South Jersey. I always like to always describe it as South Jersey because New Jersey is a great state, but South Jersey is beautiful. I have ocean, I have bay. We have the Delaware Bay as well. And my district is the largest district in the state of New Jersey. So it takes up a little over 40% of the entire state is actually my district geographically.
Yeah. My grandma came from Austria and landed in New Jersey.
Really?
There.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where she met my granddad. So on my mom's
side. Do you know where in New Jersey?
I'd have to get back to you.
Okay.
I just recorded a bunch of stuff with her actually, just for that reason.
South Jersey.
Probably. I'd have to get back to you. Good question. Let's just say it's South Jersey. Why not?
Yeah. I like to feel.
Yeah, so, it certainly wasn't like Newark or anything.
Real quickly though, they have a certain vision of New Jersey, which all of it's good, urban, industrialized, very compressed. But actually, where I am, for example, I live in the middle of 6 acres with a little lake in the back, and I'm 2 miles from the ocean. That's nice. Pretty cool. Yeah. So there's some really, really pretty areas down by us. There are farms, good hunting, a lot of areas that are opened up. Sure, not as big as Texas, but it's
nothing's as big as Texas.
I guess not. See, I'm not going to argue with that one. You were nice and one to invite me.
Literally nothing. I speak in absolute terms.
Okay.
And so you were a dentist. And what made you come to Congress?
Well, so quickly, because I don't want to take up the whole time, I have a long political history. I actually started out as a fire commissioner. I was a volunteer fireman. And from that, I ran for township committee, which is like council. And people didn't think I had a chance, and I won. And then I ran for county commissioner, which New Jersey was the only state that called it freeholder. I was a county commissioner, then state assembly, and state senate. I was in there for 16 years. And the current, and maybe you didn't know him, Congressman Lobiondo retired. He decided to retire, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to run, and I like to be involved. I enjoy government. I enjoy politics.
And this is the 2018 election, right?
Yes.
So we came in at the same time.
Yes, we did.
But you ran as a Democrat.
Yes, I did.
We'll get into this in more detail, but why start out as a Democrat? What was your philosophy there?
The story, the philosophy is one thing. First of all, I was a Blue Dog Democrat, and for those listening that aren't sure what that is, that's a conservative.
Because there's so few of them anymore.
Exactly, they're really not around. Texas had some, and actually there are a few everywhere, but that's become less and less prevalent. So when I got out of dental school, did my residency program, and went further south in New Jersey, because I actually was further north. I live in the county that's the most southern county in New Jersey. Some folks came to me and said, you know what, nice guy, you like people, you're really interested in government, I was president of the Dental Society, why don't you run for office? And I remember that day I said to them, I think I'm really a little too conservative to run as a Democrat. They were Democrats. They said, the Democratic Party, there's a point to all this, is the big tent, and there's definitely room for you. Back in those days, Dan, there was. That's the difference.
It wasn't that long ago, those days.
No, I know. I was a conservative Democrat, and even in the state Senate, if you would ask somebody who was the most conservative Democrat that was there, they'd say Jeff Van Drew. And in the state Senate, they just knew, look, this is the way it is. It's how Van Drew's going to vote. If you don't like it, then tell him to leave, but he's going to do what he's going to do. So I just always been a Democrat. And then I came into Congress, and some things really started to change.
Isn't that interesting? I talked to a lot of people who kind of grew up as a Democrat. It's just what they are, right? Very, very much a labor union party. And I can always understand the the Labor Party. I get that, right? You're for the working class. You think they're taken advantage of. These are the concerns you have. I can understand that. I'm sure I don't agree with it, but I get it. I'm not sure I understand the socialist tendencies. It seems to be a philosophy of grievance primarily. But I get the Labor Party stuff. I just don't know where that is anymore in the Democrat Party.
It was about hardworking people, good people, that were open-minded, that were more bipartisan. And that's what I mean when I got in Congress, everything changed. I'd see the things we were doing and how we just repeatedly attacked the president, which is how I really got to change, because I would go on television and say, hey, I'm not voting for impeachment. And boy, the world went crazy because they just said, hey, look, once in a while you can vary, but you're going to vote for impeachment. I'll never forget this. One of the leaders saying this to me, I'm never going to say who it was, but one of the statements were, you are going to obey.
Yeah.
And I can't say it because I'm on your podcast, but you can imagine
Please
what
say
I was
it.
thinking.
Come on.
No, I'm not going to. But it's like, blank you. No, I'm not going to obey. I'm going to do what I think is right for my people that I represent. This Democratic Party, it was like Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave it. It left me. It is so different. There are people in the Democratic Party now, and I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, I guess, but they don't even love America. They don't love American values. That the country is
they want to change them fundamentally. I love the country so much. I just want it to be perfect. That's what they'll say. And I'm like, imagine if you said that to your wife. You're just not where you need to be right now. Yeah. I want you to be better. That's how much I love you. Could you imagine how that would go over?
I completely change you.
Yeah, I just want you to be totally different.
Yeah, but that's how much I love you and how great you are. It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work.
That's not
and
love.
It didn't work. And you were there when we were in Congress and we were doing messaging bills that were nonsensical, and we were doing legislation that wasn't good, and we were jamming good legislation, bad legislation into good legislation.
Yeah.
And then
I remember.
the commission
gave me a lot of content.
Hearings. And I bet you it did. And I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And in reality, I really wasn't doing it because whether you like him or not, President Trump was doing a pretty good job. He really was. He did a good job.
It's hard to deny the policy agenda.
I'll take a mean tweet once in a while.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can live with that. I can't live with
it. Was a little more than once in a while, but still, I'll still take him.
It's him.
Yeah, I'll take him.
You know where he was at.
It's because America is doing well. In a variety of ways. Okay, the audience is probably certainly curious because we rarely get insights. I'm asked all the time, like, what's AOC like? And I'm like, look, she's friendly in the elevator, but that's about the most I interact with her. But you actually were in conference. And so, I think people are curious about a few things. One is how that plays out, this divide between these sort of new Democrat socialists that are up and coming, the squad and all that, and sort of the more mainstream Democrats, how that division played out. And I think a lot of people are curious how Nancy Pelosi is able to exert such control. I mean, you got to give it to her. She's very good at her job as far as exerting control over her conference in a way that I don't know that any Republican ever will be able to. It's not in our nature. We're very divided, I think more so than the Democrat Party. Which is unfortunate. We love circular firing squads in a way that Democrats don't seem to. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any insights that?
Yeah, there's a few points. One, they very much try to do everything they can not to be divided. They are relentless. They see this as a different thing. This is kind of a serious conversation in a way too, because, when you would speak with them, I would even say, you all, when I was getting to the point where I really couldn't stand it. And we used to have our Blue Dog meetings, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, they really weren't, a lot of it wasn't Blue Dogs anymore. And I would say, you're going to lose everything. You won the majority. We're going to lose. You keep doing this, you're going to lose. And they said, it doesn't matter. We're doing the right thing. We're going to get things done now. And if we're out for a little while, we'll get back in and we'll continue the progress. That's the thing. It's almost like the communist Chinese in that if you were to say somebody from China, oh, gee, it could be 50 years before, they say we have thousands of years. We have all the time in the world. And that's why when we do regain the control, we have to as much as possible. And I really don't speak a whole lot in Congress because I got a lot to do. And frankly, a lot of it's just yapping, But I am going to talk about that a little bit and how we have to not agree with each other, not be rhinos. I'm more conservative now than I ever was, but that we have to work together to make the change that's necessary to save the country.
And it's an interesting point. Democrats do that, and they're more successful at it than we are. I think for a couple of reasons. One, they stay united, but also by nature, their agenda is amenable to that strategy. Okay, and what I mean by that is, as Ronald Reagan said, like the most permanent thing is a government program. If we took control and knew full well that whatever we did, balancing the budget, it would be painful. We fix our entitlement programs, it would be extremely painful, politically unpopular, but we did it because we know it's right. Then we'd lose elections. We'd lose elections right after that. We'd say, hey, you know what? At least we did what's right. The problem is it's extremely easy for Democrats to put those right back in place. It's extremely hard for us to undo Obamacare. Extremely, and we've proven that to ourselves, how difficult that is. And so we're forever, and conservatives get very frustrated. If you haven't noticed, as you're new to our party, our base gets very frustrated by this set of facts, and they yell at us and they say, you just got to fight like they do. But I'm like, look, fighting like they do means tearing down America and tearing down the institutions that conservatives are trying to conserve. And you're always going to be on defense, and that's just something you got to get used to, because that's literally the nature of conservatism, is defense of our founding principles and defense of the limited government we have left, and chipping away at it the other direction as best we can. But if we lose elections, we take one step forward and 5 steps back. Unlike Democrats, that doesn't happen to them
exactly right.
by nature of their strategy.
So we've got to be careful, quite frankly, not to lose elections. We've got to be careful to set out what our goals are really going to be. You're not going to be able to fix everything instantaneously. There's things you can fix, like should we finish the wall? Absolutely. Should we have a whole different immigration policy? Absolutely. And there's many,
there are some
many
things that seem
things
a little bit more permanent.
Absolutely, that we can really straighten out. But it's really important as we go forward that when we are going to take something apart, because the country has changed. So if you take away the medical care that's there now, you damn well better have something to replace it with that's going to seem at least as good. You can't take it away.
Yeah.
We learn this and then say, well, that's it. We just took it away. We don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And
I think people were obsessed with the repeal and replace, except they forgot the whole replace thing. That frightened people. I'm glad I wasn't around when all that went down, because frankly, it sounds like a mess. One thing I work on, one thing we do on this podcast quite a bit, is talk healthcare policy and how important it is that we establish a vision for healthcare that you can actually sell to the American people. And it's not repeal and replace. It's incremental fixes towards a more free market system, but that do not sacrifice the safety net because healthcare is too important to people. Of course, right now, people are more concerned about inflation, the border, things like that, but.
Crime.
Crime.
I really don't, and I know we just don't want to get into the routine political stuff, but I really mean this. I've never seen a president where one president could do more harm in 1 year with a majority Congress.
Just with complete lack of leadership. I mean, it's because it's.
Is it?
It's mind blowing. Yeah.
Is it? So I say this to a lot of people. People ask me, what's going on? How can this be? And I said, well. Now, I was just a regular dentist. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't see weird things behind every door. And this has been going on for a while. Our educational system has been changing for a while, where kids don't really get to hear, even much about the founding fathers, and certainly in colleges and universities where there should be an exchange of ideas, all types of ideas, and a discussion of that and a debate of that, and that's good and that's healthy. That's not happening much anymore. We see that billionaires around the world are actually getting involved in our country and trying to change it because they don't like the way America is, because it's the only country that truly was based upon working people. Celebrities and other important individuals doing the same thing. There's a group of people around the world, and this isn't a conspiracy thing, but really significantly want to change America as we know it. Now, one thing I think about America, and I'm proud to say it, we need to be strong, we need to be number one, we need to be the best. You were talking about education. I don't want to see the United States of America be 28th in education and China be number one. You talk about manufacturing. We can make stuff. We're smarter. We're faster. We're better. We proved that in World War II. We can prove it again over and over, and we have to.
What's frustrating about the Democrats is they would agree with those statements to an extent, right? They would say, well, of course we want to be number one at education and we want manufacturing here. They say that, but they refuse to take any of the actions that would precipitate those outcomes. They refuse to tackle regulatory and permitting problems that are what prevent businesses from doing what we need them to do here. They want to raise taxes on corporations and small businesses so that they have less incentive to do business here. The list goes on and on. It's very frustrating. And I deal with it on my committee. I'm sure you see it on yours. I want to go back to your story real quick though. So because your switch still fascinates me. So, but what precipitated that the most was the impeachment, right?
The impeachment. So I read, there was a lot. I was getting pretty unhappy, but I read about impeachment. I read the impeachment papers. I went through the whole thing. I really spent some time on this. I just didn't make a quick decision and not look. I really personally invested in this. It wasn't impeachable. It just, his offenses were not impeachable. And if you read what our founding fathers said about impeachment, it was very rare that it should, if ever, should be used. Some of them didn't even want to put it in the Constitution because they believed that it could do more harm than good. If impeachment is overused, we're going to become a third world country where every time we don't, as the majority party, whoever the majority party is, doesn't like a president or something they do, we can just go forward and say, hey, we're going to impeach him. That is not what impeachment was about. They were wrong with what they did to Trump. You could have censured him or you could have done some other stuff, and they did. But impeachment was something I wasn't going to do. So I was, on the...
It was a perfect phone call.
I was on the news. And
it may not have been perfect, but it was certainly not what Democrats said it was. Or even close. I still can't believe it in hindsight. It's been so long since I've even thought about it. But yeah, you're completely right. But was there any discussion on the Democrat side? Like, was anybody like, oh, geez, I'm not really sure about this, but they went along anyway?
So this is...
So what are they afraid
teaches you
of?
About people. And I'm not going to name names again. So I'm at a Blue Dog meeting. I actually asked for the meeting to come together, okay? And we're sitting there, and I said, guys, you can't do the impeachment. It's the wrong thing to do. It's going to kill you politically. Just don't do it. And there were some people that just said, we're absolutely not doing it. We're absolutely not going to, there was a handful, right? And I remember at the time, I even remember one of them literally, and this is a podcast, it's an open thing. So I remember one of them said, when they come to me and say impeachment, this is what, and he put up his middle finger. That's what I'm going to tell them, right? A number of days later,
that didn't last
he's
long.
writing an op-ed in a big newspaper why impeachment has to be done. All of a sudden, everybody's falling off. I'm still standing there by myself.
How? Like, I can't change my mind that quickly.
They were, I agree. First of all, Pelosi had tremendous influence.
Yeah, well, my original question, how does she do that?
What do you hear? What the kinds of things people would hear? We're going to change your district. You're going to have a district that's unwinnable for you. We're going to make sure you don't have any money for election. Because remember, Blue Dogs generally needed a little more money because they were moderates. So they were sort of in between in swing districts.
In a purple district.
Exactly. So you're not going to get money. And other things were told them. You're never going to, God forbid you did lose, before you would have gotten a job with the administration, you're not going to get that job. All those things started to mount up, and some people got really nervous about it. And it's also, Dan, it's a weird feeling, and I think you can relate to this, to stand alone. Mm-hmm. To stand alone and to do something that's different, and the people in the group that you're in, which were Democrats that I was in, think you're a piece of you-know-what for doing it, and or at least pretend to. It's not an easy thing, and you have to have a lot of personal strength to do that. I didn't care, and I figured, I'm doing it. And I'll tell you this story. So this is all going on, and I'm walking back from the Capitol with my chief of staff, and I said to her, this is probably it. I've had a long political career. I've been involved in a lot of stuff. I'm not serving this way. I'm not voting for impeachment. I'm not doing these other things, and they are going careening to the left so much. It's not like coming to the middle anymore. If you try to go to the middle with them right now, you're still at the left.
Yeah.
So I said, it's probably it. And then I get a call like the next day. Actually, she did. And it was from the White House. And they said the president wanted to see me. Sat down with him for about, no BS, about an hour and a half. It was very nice, very gentle. I know, but he really was. And at one point, he turned and looked at me and said, you should be a Republican. And I turned and looked at him and I said, Mr. President, I want to be a Republican. It's the best thing I ever did. And then he said, this is the funny part. Let's do it right now. No, he's got some staff there and stuff. No, not right. I said, Mr. President, I really have to go home, tell my kids, my wife, and we'll do it in a few days. Okay. And we did. And the rest is kind of history. Dan, I am so much happier. I really am. I am conservative by nature. I've actually become more conservative in many ways, to be honest with you.
Let your conservative freak flag fly.
Yeah, it's come out of me, to be honest with you. And I think as a reaction, too, to some of what they're doing over there. I mean, even today, we're supposed to be doing a bill on China.
Right.
To make us
that's
more
a disappointing one because there's a lot of good stuff in that bill.
I know, but that's what they always do.
Yeah, but then they pack it with just enough that you're like, I just can't. Because I am not one of those people who just, you can always find a reason to vote no, right? It's very easy. And I don't appreciate people who come up here and are like, I just vote no on everything. I have a 100% liberty score. Well, congratulations. But like an unthinking robot can do that as well. Just vote no on everything, whether it's Trump's agenda or Biden's agenda. You just vote no. I don't do that. I think you have to look at the totality of bills, and we get slammed for it. You've been slammed for it. I get slammed for it. Whatever. People got to explain what they vote for. But this one, like most of the stuff they put out, it's like, man, if you just stripped out like 30% of this, you could get a lot of us to vote for it, and you would get a lot of what you want, not everything. Why wouldn't you do that? These people don't want to govern at all. And that is a different dynamic than us because, again, limited government versus they just want to do more. And you would think that just to get some wins that they would do that, but they just don't. I really don't get it.
Thoughtful government. I don't get it either. The only thing that I really do get, and they have made clear, and I wonder how people like Steny Hoyer and others who've been around a long time and used to be what I call, there's three groups over there, by the way. There are traditional liberals. Okay. Steny would be an example of that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Then
still the bleeding heart, but they're not socialists.
But they still love America.
They don't necessarily, would they call themselves progressives? How do they define progressivism?
I don't know. I don't think they would because of the connotation that it has now in the party. I don't know what they would call themselves. There are the Blue Dogs, which there are very few left, as you've seen, virtually none, and that are really Blue Dogs, that really are. And then they call themselves progressives.
Okay, yeah. So the progressives, socialists, the same kind of thing. Is like
some could say Marxist, and a few of them, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to throw mean names around or scare people, but it's really true. Yeah. And they want us.
Well, Marxism fundamentally is the practice of grievance politics. I mean, whether it's class based, but now they've transformed it from class based to also race based. But it's Marxism. Yeah.
And everything's race. Right. Everything's race. I've got to tell you, I meet a lot of people, as do you. I've been out in the world a lot between my dental practice and everything else I've done, and as far as race issues, am I saying that America's perfect? Of course not. Nobody's perfect, but we've come a long way. We fought a civil war, for God's sake, to straighten this out, And instead of this is what I don't like about them especially, instead of bringing people together, saying we can do this, black and white and Asian, whatever you are, we can do this, we by what they're doing are actually causing disharmony and pulling people apart. It's hateful, it's hurtful, and it's bad.
Yeah, it sure is. What's your advice for Joe Manchin? You talked about being the guy standing alone.
I gave him
he's
advice.
Not totally alone. I mean, he's got Kristen Sinema. She's also doing a good job.
Yep, and I got to give it to him for having
the
courage. I can't.
Are we close to getting him to turn?
I don't know, because if he had through all the stuff he's gone through, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if there's more in the back scenes that we don't really know about with him. I certainly admire the fact that at least he held on here, and believe me, I can imagine, because I know what my pressure was and what people did to me, and not the majority, but there's a lot of good Democrats over there that come over. How you doing, Jeff? I don't want to say everybody, but there's a number of them, and I think Joe should change. I think most of what he is represents more of a moderate Republican now than really a Democrat. And certainly his state is Republican now. You know what's happened? And I'm sure you study history. What used to be traditional Republicans, wealthy upper class people, let me say it that way, what everybody thinks of as Republicans,
Country
not
club.
so much anymore. You know what I mean? That's actually a lot of the really wealthy people and other people, especially really big wealth, tend to be Democrats now. Republicans are blue collar, hardworking people that want to be recognized. That's what Donald Trump was about. That's what Hillary Clinton was about when she called them, what was it, a basket of deplorables.
Yeah.
She meant that.
Yeah, she did, because you know the parties have sort of transitioned in a more cultural way, and it isn't. I mean, the richest neighborhoods in Houston are definitely mostly Democrat. You know, and I'm thinking of West University area, some of the River Oaks area. Yeah, I mean that's true. And working class who used to vote Democrat because Democrats primarily messaged to them and unions and things like that. Again, I can understand that party. But they left them when they started calling them racist all the time. I think that's where it went off the rails. So we've got an enormous opportunity as Republicans. I'm not sure that we're going to take it the way we should.
We have to, man. I say to people all the time, you know, when I speak to a group, 100 people or at a meeting, I was at a conservative, that's the name of the club, conservative Republican club meeting, talking to them about all the issues, including infrastructure. They're all fine now. They understand it. But in any event, when I was speaking with them, I said, Dan, it's not just you and me in Congress. It's not just the president. It's not just the senators. The people have to demand that we do well, and that this governing body, that this Congress, that this amazing country prevails. Because if we lose America, I'm telling you, the world has lost everything. There is no other America.
That's for sure. And I mean, it really is the last great hope. I mean, a lot of people, I think, wrongly believed over the years that, you know, European countries are free. Like it's like we're just the only ones in Australia, you know, but like, hell, they've got quarantine camps in Australia. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on over there. One of the last questions I have for you is your impression of the Republican Party. I know you're happy here, but what are some surprises that maybe you weren't expecting, or did you come in with both eyes open and kind of
came in with both eyes open? I think the good surprise was just how, and I really mean this, how really nice everybody was. I always say to my staff, I expected there to be, you know, a bunch of nice people, but some folks, and I even spoke to, and I'm, you know, again, I'm a little bit tougher with this, so I've stood alone before, but I thought, okay, there's going to be people that are going to mock me a little or think I'm taking advantage of some situation. Now, I was lucky in a way, believe it or not. I'm the only one who flipped parties people have flipped parties before in Congress, but that went from the majority party to the minority party. So what was real good about it, and I hate to say that because who wants to be in the minority, but what was good about it, Dan, was that literally people couldn't say, oh, you did this just to, you know, increase your profile or so you could get a chairman. That's typically what's done. So you can get a chairmanship or ranking member in this case, whatever. Yeah. And, you know, but you could really move. That was not why I did it. It really was philosophical. And I hope, you could tell me better. You talked to a lot of folks in the caucus. I think people know that. I think they know that I'm a believer and that I really believe in what I did, and I did it for the right reasons. So because of that, people were amazingly nice. So many people came up to me and said, hey, I'm so-and-so, you know, anything you need, any help, anything that you want, just let me know. And a lot, and more than once. That was pretty cool. I had very, very few people, virtually none, that were mean-spirited, a couple maybe. So that was the good surprise. The surprise, I don't even know if it's a surprise, and the party is changing. I don't know that it's a surprise, but it's what I see and hope for the party. We just can't be, and I'm older than you, so I get away with saying this, stodgy older guys that, you know what I mean, are going to do the same old thing and just be cranky about. We've got to really get out there and show what the new Republican Party, conservative, and I mean conservative, I'm not against that. I'm not talking rhino, I'm talking about what it really can be. And I hope that some people that in the past and even in the present who haven't been tolerant, and again, I don't mean we should go way off the tracks. We're not Democrats, but haven't been tolerant that, yeah, we might all be a little different. Guy from New Jersey might be a little different than a guy from Texas.
There's rhino hunters,
Oklahoma.
right? I call them rhino hunters. Like you can look for any reason to accuse your colleagues of rhinos. And unfortunately, there's an incentive structure on the right that rewards that behavior. And it's extremely dishonest. I talk about it all the time. I stand alone in that regard because I'm very forthright about this and saying how we need to expel it because it's cancel culture. It's cancel culture on the right. It's the same. It's just another word for racist that the left uses. It's just equally as meaningless, but also harmful. And it's just dumb because there's not a big ideological spectrum as on the conservative side in my estimation. There's a difference in tactics, difference in rhetoric and tone. But luckily, conservatism forces you to live in a box because it's a set of governing principles, and you can't really veer from that too much. You can kind of argue about how it applies and here and there, but the problem is, again, it's very easy to say, okay, I've came up with this set of solutions for healthcare. I think this is a conservative set of solutions. Unbelievably easy for opportunists on your right flank to say, oh, that's just some rhino stuff, and it's like, and you just torpedo it.
I hope we don't do that.
And it's,
I know. It's the thing that I worry about. Because if we do it too much, and if we disobey Reagan's 11th commandment too much, which we all know what that is, don't criticize a fellow Republican. If we do that too much, we're going to get weaker, and we're going to split apart, and we could possibly lose. So if you have a problem with me, or I have a problem with you, let's sit down over a cup of coffee or whatever, and just sit down and say, okay.
But that doesn't get you any retweets. That's the problem. And, our social media has made our politics toxic in so many ways. It's made it good. I mean, I derive a lot of my influence from being able to access social media. But gosh, at the same time, I see so many problems with it. It's just changed the way we communicate. It's made everything angrier. And it's a shame. It's a shame to sort of see what's happened to our politics and now Republicans turn in on each other. We have circular firing squads the way the left just does. Just not.
Cannot do that. I don't know how. And like I said, not that anybody will listen to me, I don't know. But when we take over the majority and we have that first caucus, I mean, that is the one thing that I want to say. As somebody who was a Democrat, you do that, you are going to open the door for them again because they are organized, they're mean, they're tough. And they like to win, and they have lots more money than we do. So, with all that, you can't afford to do that. You have a problem, you sit down with somebody, and you're right, you don't gain the same advantage, but what advantage you do gain, hopefully, is being strong and keeping the majority.
Yeah. I think there's some people that want to lose because they can make more money losing, whether they're, influencers or media people, they get more, because when people are angry, they click more, they engage more. They're willing to donate more to campaigns. There's some people who want to lose. And I expose this to voters all the time. I say, look, there's a lot of people who say they're fighting for you, but what if they won? And shouldn't fighting have an outcome of winning? And if it doesn't, then what the hell are you doing? I mean, we can do some kind of performance for you, look like it's fighting, some kind of political theater, some kind of suicide mission, right? Go down in flames. But hey, you made your point. What point did you make? You didn't win anything. You didn't move the ball forward. You probably moved it like 3 steps back. And worse than that, you persuaded like moderates that they shouldn't vote for you ever because you seem crazy. So because winning in politics is fundamentally persuasion. And we should be electing people who do that.
And
who know
one
how to
thing you never want to do, you want to never seem crazy.
Yeah, I mean, let's not elect any people who seem crazy. That would be a good start too. That's a good talk. I'll end on that cheery note. Hey, that was really great and really informative, Jeff.
I love being on with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.